Welcome back to the lab. This is Anthony Ramirez once again, and today one of my special guests is Jonathan Mitchell. And I got the luxury and the pleasure of meeting this person, and passionate is an understatement. When I meet entrepreneurs and we talk about businesses and creating businesses, sometimes it's a certain language or it's a certain vibe that you meet with people, and you can see how forward thinking they are. You can see how the wheels are turning in them and how they're trying to put something together, but there's just this vision there and there's a certain level of passion there. And so I was sitting down with Jonathan talking about some of his projects and his new company that he's out building, and man, it was a beautiful thing. So here you have Jonathan.
Hi, thanks for having me, Anthony.
Thank you for coming, brother. So, it's ironic because you and I have a mutual friends.
Yeah,
in the industry.
we do.
And I'm surprised we've never we've never really come across each other's paths before.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always equate your network to your net worth. It's a very common phrase in entrepreneurship and business. But I think when your network starts to connect outside of you, that's when you know your network's growing.
In San Diego, I've met tons of cool people.
Yeah.
And I found it so strange now how I'm I don't know, I'm hanging out with somebody over here. I'm doing some event with somebody. The person walks in. We know each other, right? But then they also are friends with the person I'm talking to.
Sure.
And it's like this weird law of attraction.
Right. That was the point you're getting to.
All the time.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Even how I met you when I walked in, I asked for coffee and you and I started chopping it up and we immediately started getting into entrepreneurship and, bigger is not better. I mean, it was quick, bro.
Right.
We connected quickly.
It's a certain, who was I talking to? Jason Stewart?
No.
He owns Epic Fighting.
I don't know.
So it does like MMA fighting. Anyhow, we were talking about this.
It's another promotion.
Another business, right? And so we were talking about how people operate on certain frequencies.
Yeah.
Right. And nothing's wrong with having like a 9-to-5 job. Some people, that's just what they do every day. No problem. But an entrepreneurial spirit is a little bit different. You're different. You're just a different animal.
Sure.
Because you look at the world completely different. Like what do they say? There is no limit on the amount of income you can make. But once you understand that concept, everything really changes.
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways you can approach that, right? I think some people are just geared naturally towards entrepreneurship, and I think others kind of grow into it, right? I think what you're saying is, you could start out as a W-2 employee, and there are people that start out doing a W-2 job and say, hey, look, I want to become an entrepreneur. I think I can do this, and they take the plunge, so to speak. And there are others that, maybe they had a job when they were younger, or that you hear stories about people that were entrepreneurs as kids. I started out selling candy, or I started out, selling lemonade, and then all of a sudden and that's just the path they've always taken.
I've always found it like with commission based. A lot of people, they start doing things where they're, I don't know, either selling cars or they're selling something, and they're interacting with people.
Do you feel like it's the energy of like the salesman, or just the drive to just attain more?
Somebody told me one day, it was an old mentor of mine, and I hate the way this sounds to some people. He's like, salaries for pussies. And at first, when I heard that, I'm like, oh, that's kind of rude. But when I started asking him more questions, he's like, dude, every morning I wake up, my bank account's zero. He's like, so today I have to do something that's going to generate my income. What I do today, I will get paid for in 90 days from today, maybe 6 months from today, based on my activities today. And the salary, hourly job, you're there for an hour, here you're paid for your hour. If you're salaried and you're guaranteed those wages, whether you leave in 7 hours or you stay till 10 hours, you're guaranteed a specific amount.
Right.
But when you transition, or you're like a commission based, or you're sales oriented, it's truly based on your performance.
Sure.
Right. And then at that point, your limit is really you. Some people will say, well, if you sell more units, you can make more. Okay, that's obviously one thing. Or you can make more money per transaction. Okay, that's another way to do it.
Product matters too.
Right? Product, the higher price point. You start selling more higher price point
Ticket
goods.
price, yeah.
You can make more that way too. But ultimately, it still boils down to that person's individual performance. So it's a performance-based business. And then as you start getting that system in place of when you're generating your own business, then the natural progression is compartmentalizing that business. Taking a junior role or an assistant to take off non-income producing activities and try to focus on the income producing stuff, right? And it just starts evolving. Because when you started, you started off originally in cell phone sales, but what ended up transitioning you from that to then doing the solar business?
So I was selling cell phones. I was working a tremendous amount of hours because that was a commission-based job. I got promoted pretty quickly. And then we started selling alarms, actually, from the stores and the kiosks as well. So that kind of got me in the world of door-to-door sales that was all commission, what you're actually talking about now. It was all commission-based as opposed to salary or hourly plus commission. And then when I saw the numbers they were making, that was the aha moment when I was like, what? Like we're making this number, let's say, $100 for selling this alarm. And like that was a pull through or add on item for us. And cool. These guys are making, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on that same sale. And for a guy like me, that's commission based or thinking like seeing the world through that lens, I'm like, yeah, that might be a good option. And so I looked at it and said, hey, look, I'm ambitious. I'm young. I want to climb as many rungs as I can I want to make as much money as I can. Maybe I should look at a product that's a little bit newer. And the market hasn't really seen the boom that's coming. And so I jumped into solar actually over alarms. I learned how to knock doors and just hit the ground running, man. Started recruiting and the rest is history.
Yeah, but you think about this though. There's really two main transitions in your point when you stop and really think about it. The first one is the epiphany moment. Like, wait a minute. I'm already doing this activity and this is how much margin is in this game. Wait.
Yeah.
Right? How can I put myself in the position where I can gain the difference in the margin? Because your average person is thinking of it in a version of a pay raise. How much can I make more per hour? Or how much my salary can go up? You're looking at it as how much can I create more revenue per transaction?
100%.
You're dollarizing it. That's the epiphany. Once you start dollarizing it, that's like the initial foundation of any business. How much can I make for this one widget? Now the next problem is how many widgets can I do? Right? And then everything else is just a subsidiary
Foundation of the business.
The foundation of the business itself, right? But then the secondary part is the activity part. And that's the part I think, even as realtors, because a lot of realtors, loan officers, different financial people that come in to watch stuff like this, the hardest one is the one where you have to force yourself to interact with people. Picking up the phone, doing the door knocking, like doing the hard grunt work. Because they're scared.
Bro, I knew how to sell, or I thought I knew how to sell.
Yeah.
Knocking doors is a different beast.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to learn that skill, and it was tough for me. It was very humbling. I had my wife role play with me. I had her slam the door in my face so I could get used to that no and accepting that was part of the game. But it was humbling, man. When you think you know how to sell and then a new genre or a new type of selling is introduced and you got to go back to square one and you're a rookie again.
Yeah,
man. But in the end, like anything, of value, if you walk through the fear, you walk through the learning curve on the other side, you come out better and stronger for it. So,
but I think you said something that's actually overlooked a lot of times too, is that it's a game. It's just a game.
It's a game.
It's
a numbers game. You got to get out and do the work.
Well, you have to hit a certain number of doors and then you start tracking your numbers, right? I hit 20 doors, 50 doors. I had how many conversations? And then you start analyzing, how did my conversations go? Was it taking me down the path of getting to do a transaction? There's like a chronological order of events that starts becoming self-evident through the process. So there's
a whole system for door knocking. People think, to your point, man, think that door knocking is just go out there and knock doors.
No.
This stuff is broken down. There is a system to it, 100%. Bandwagoning,
All the closing
posture, tone of voice. Some of these things are just, transcend all areas of sales.
Yep.
But door knocking there's a method to the madness for sure.
Have you ever studied Brian Tracy?
I know Brian Tracy, yeah.
Yeah, that's where I learned my stuff from.
Yeah, he's a sav.
Threw my CDs in there and was like, 21 closing techniques.
He's old school sales, but like fundamentally in sales, that stuff never goes away.
Bro, the tactics are always the same. The application of the tactics is what changes. So
Zig Ziglar, all those guys,
all of it,
always
all the same.
Yep.
There's another book. It's Greatest Salesman in the World.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's phenomenal. That just the mental approach. And the book was written like 100 years ago.
Yeah. It has some spiritual applications as well with Paul.
Yep.
Love that book.
Yeah.
I can't think of the author right now, but it'll come to me.
Yeah. Great.
And it's a short read. It's like a couple hours. Yeah.
And when you're doing like the door knocking thing, and I find it kind of, it makes total sense to me now that I know you, is that your first thing was to immediately start role playing with your wife and close the door in my face. It's like, let me get the reps out. I got to get the reps out.
Got to get the reps.
Some people will just do the actual activity and then they'll say how much they hate it.
Yeah.
Like, I hate cold calling. Cold calling sucks. Or even like agents I talk to, I hate open houses. Well, why? And number one, a lot of people do it and they get great results out of it. But if you just did something and you door knocked on 50 doors and you got your door slammed in your face 50 times, you have to start questioning yourself, not the activity, but how the activity was playing out. What did you say? How did you show up? What time of day did you show up? How were you dressed?
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you got to start using that.
And even in sales, one-on-one, like, so when you're sitting at, it's in-home sales and having a conversation, I'm going to go back and watch this podcast, Anthony, and I'm going to analyze my body language. I'm going to analyze my tone. I'm going to try to get better at doing these events. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing in sales. When you sit across from a customer, you go back and you replay that in your mind and you replay those objections or their concerns. How did I respond? Did I show aggression when they asked me a question because they just wanted to know an answer?
That's phenomenal. And
so you essentially make your pitch or your sales process better over time by going through the reps.
God, bro, I don't think people get this. Like what we call that in the military was an after action review. What went right? What went wrong? What do we need to sustain? Right? It takes a spoonful of humility to be able to stop and analyze yourself. And it's not being negatively critiqueful. It's finding areas of improvement.
Sure.
Right? That in itself takes humbling. So at one aspect, you have to have the balls to go out there and do the activity. At the same time,
allowing yourself the grace to fail. Correct. And understand, hey, I'm not going to be Tom Brady the first time I throw a football.
Right.
Yeah, and don't have that expectation, but you got to get out there and throw that thing to get going, to get the action going. We hear about that in entrepreneurship all the time too, right? Yeah. Get started.
Prime the pump. It's old school water pumps.
Yeah.
My old mentor gave us this analogy. He's like, if you think about it like this, you're running this pump and this pump hasn't been there. It's been there for 50 years, 100 years, right? And you're trying to pump the water out. Remember those old school pumps on like the wells of like farms?
Yeah, with the lever.
With the lever, right?
Yeah.
He's like, if you go with the attempt of just like a couple pumps and expecting the water to come all the way from the bottom to the top of the well,
you don't have the right expectation.
You don't have the right expectations. And if you go in there just trying to go hard, full bore at it, you're going to burn yourself out. The key thing
but also break the lever.
Break the lever. There's things can break, right? Mm-hmm. But if you stick with it like a marathon, with a marathon's mentality, like, look, this is what it's going to take for me to do. I know it's going to suck. But as you keep pumping that lever and you keep staying consistent with it, at some point, once that water hits, then it's just flowing. Then it becomes very easy.
In flow, that higher level of thinking like you were talking about.
Right?
Yeah.
And just having that expectation of the process and being patient with it.
Yeah.
Right? That to me was like the aha moment.
Sure.
I was like, whoa, okay, now I get this. So when I'm talking to somebody else and you're reflecting at the things you need to course correct day one, it's not a matter of beating yourself up or saying why the activity sucked. It's what can I do to help improve that process?
Bro, I told my wife about you, and I talk to a lot of people. I don't want to sound pretentious. I talk to a lot of people. And there are certain people that strike me and I enjoy, that I feel like I can really, really learn and take something from.
Yeah.
And I think we can full circle that. It's the same sort of thinking. It's like, in order for you to have something to give to me that I can find valuable, really, you've had to walk through some reps. You've had to walk through some humility. You've had to grow as a person, as a business person. You've had to walk through that. And then you have the capacity now to share with a guy like me, who I'm a sponge, man. I'm hungry for guys that can help me grow and get where I want to go. And I, in turn, want to pay that forward to people in my network. And yeah, man, it's full circle on the cream rises to the top, and, you know, the guys that are in the journey and that are, you know, pushing forward, shoulder to the plow. You know, it's great when you can meet someone that's like-minded, and appreciate your friendship, man. Looking forward to growing.
Dude, my
it.
pleasure is mine, bro. This is one of the things that I talk about in here a lot, is that there's a certain pattern in things, right? Sometimes people feel like, oh, that guy, he's really lucky. He just got really lucky, right? But they don't attribute it to certain personality traits that they had to adopt.
Yeah.
Some people have to go through the fire over and over and over for them to finally learn. Someone else can just be like, you know what? I've done this before, or I've gone through this before. I'm tired. I submit. I'm willing to become a student. And letting go.
Sure.
And part of that letting go is part of letting go of their old self, because they see themselves in this other light. Once you let go of that and be willing to submit, to be able to change and be able to want to improve yourself, or maybe you have mouths to feed, and that's really, you know, coming to terms with the responsibility of it.
Yeah.
Then things start to click, right? But you were mentioning earlier, so you started doing your door knocking and you started doing your solar. So what started happening after that? Because your business obviously started growing.
Yeah. So I started recruiting, building teams. You know, sales managers make quite a bit of money. I started seeing that, as you were saying, as you grow, sort of, what was the word you used? The base of the business. You only have so much time in a day, and you want to make as much money as you can.
Time constraints.
Yeah. So how do you duplicate yourself, right? How do you create more time? Well, you recruit in that business. You recruit guys. You bring guys in from other industries.
How are you recruiting? Because that's another new skill set that has to kick in.
So, you know, you go to Starbucks and you see a guy that just has phenomenal energy and is enjoying being there, and it feels genuine, and you naturally sort of are drawn to this human. You're like, this guy's making $10 an hour, you know, working really hard, making lattes. I wonder if this guy could slang some solar.
Yeah.
And I wonder if he's ever seen a commission structure, because the same thing I saw when I was making, you know, I was pushing like maybe 100K.
Yeah.
When I saw the commission, I was like, whoa, what's going to be the light that goes off in his brain going from $10 an hour to this amount of money that he could make?
AJ, Megan, Ryan, any of my old rookies back in the day. Does this sound familiar?
Oh, yeah.
So when I was hiring, me and Jocko, when we were hiring these rookies, he was doing this whole program nationwide for us, right?
Shout out Jocko. Met you at the airport.
Yep. But we're trying to figure out like the right kind of people to hire, especially in our industry. And so we tried everything. We tried, like, the guys were like master's degrees, right? And they were just paralysis analysis, had no personality to them. Then we went to the other end, like the good looking person that's always like dressed up, the popular person in school kind of thing, right?
Perfect part.
Charisma.
Perfect come over.
Yeah, the charisma.
Mm-hmm.
The worst, bro. Couldn't handle the rejection.
Sure.
Right? But the people that we found that put themselves through school and that went through some type of sport at the same time. Competitive nature, worked good with a team, worked with a purpose, was like good with instruction. Like there was like a certain magical ingredient that we saw afterwards.
Is that military based? Did the recruiters already start studying that? Did you guys already have an understanding of that from talking to military recruiters? Or you guys sort of found that out, or maybe a combination of both?
A combination of both. So like when Jocko was talking about it, what they were doing like with like the SEALs, it was different in their world because people, same thing, they can be football players, soccer players, but they didn't have the mental mindset to persevere, that mental drive attitude.
To make it through buds.
Yeah. And then somebody else on paper may have been perfect. They went to Yale, they're an officer school, this, and that.
Yeah.
And they're just a person who succeeds, but they weren't doing it for the right reasons. And so therefore, since the right reasons weren't really embedded in them, they didn't make it. Right? Because it's a certain kind of mindset to be able to want to put yourself through something like that voluntarily. There's a higher calling.
Right.
Right. And so you'll put yourself through the crucible for that higher calling.
Yeah.
And so what we were joking about sometimes is that
the recruiting part.
Yeah, the guys that would make it, or they came from like inner cities, poor, young, hungry, with a deep desire to be rich.
Bro, I came from Section 8 and welfare, man.
Poor, young, hungry, with a deep desire to be rich.
We were poor. And, we just didn't have a lot of money, man. And once I started realizing that, I traveled as a kid too. Mm-hmm. Not a kid, but in my early 20s. Like you said, I've been in 45 countries. I love that. And I had some fun days. But once I reached my upper 20s, the realization that I was going to be a father and a husband, bro, it was just, it's time to go. And once that kind of clicks in your head, it's, there's no amount of hours, bro. It's just, there's no hump day. I actually posted on LinkedIn today. Yeah. What is hump day? Never heard of it. Like, I don't know what that means, bro. Right? Like,
it's just another day.
We're going.
Like, what was it, Martin Luther King Day? They're like, dude, are you going to be working? I'm like, what do you mean?
What are you talking about? Like, is that an option?
Yeah. But it is a double-edged sword, because I think on the opposite end of that, it's like, okay, now that you're given like no governor and you're like on full throttle, you almost have to have these mentors in place that say, hey, bro, make sure you keep and maintain a balanced life.
Balance it out.
Make sure that like, we came in here, you're like, bro, you're looking kind of stressed. I got tons of things I got to follow up with. But at the same time, you're like, dude, and as soon as you said that, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I got to meditate.
Need some space.
Just sit in my chair, close my eyes, and just go blank for just like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Just breathe. Listen to my heart.
Yeah, I agree. And you and I have chatted about that as well. And I think maybe early 40s. I don't know. How old are you?
49.
Okay. So for me, it's the balance thing too. You're right. Because I have a tendency to be all in all the time. Yeah. And yeah, you have to condition yourself to take time because at the end of the day, business is business, and we're driven by business, and business helps us be able to do the things we want to do. Mm-hmm. But the relationships, the ones that are close to us, family, friends, that's really what all this is about. And be able to influence and do great stuff. So I have this thing, I'm just as a side sort of topic, but I want to be able to take my team, friends, family, investors, business partners, and be able to go somewhere once a year, maybe, or once every other year, and do something really cool, which is build a school, dig a well.
Yeah.
It could be in this country. It could be in other countries. Mm-hmm. Go there physically with tool belt on, bag it up, and go out there and do something awesome. And so, I'm working towards that all the time to be able to give. And, you can make money for money's sake, but if you're able to do something cool with that money, have free time with your family and friends, be able to go out and give back to maybe someone that's less privileged than you, I think that is the why, or the drive behind, for me, why I get out of bed every single day. Absolutely. So you can't get lost in the weeds of only working for money's sake, in my opinion.
And it's strange. I've had people on here before, and one of the things that really meant a lot to them was, what does their last name mean?
Legacy.
Right. But it's really like, when you have your kids, or you're trying to show them this is the world and this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. We call that enlistment, right? You're enlisting them into the idea. It's enlistment.
Okay.
And this ties back into the recruiting aspect of it. Because when you tell somebody like, hey, what's your background? You see that they have a certain type of, what they call it in French, a je ne sais quoi. There's a certain way about them.
They got the juice. Right?
Like they like a switch. You see the guy's switch goes on? He's like,
charisma. There's a lot of words for it.
But trying to tell that to your kids, and it's different. Or trying to share it with your coworkers is different, because it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to go through the activity of doing it. There's a certain level of camaraderie, and there's a certain level of selflessness, And what's ironic about that is when, as leadership, you're not doing it for you, for the kudos.
Yeah.
However, the byproduct is you get this kudos. Like, man, I really respect this guy.
Sure.
And then they're willing to go through fire for you and
run through walls, man.
Changing companies, changing names. You just build this tribe around you.
Yeah.
Because of that energy.
You have it, Anthony.
Nah, bro. I'm just.
You have it, man.
I wake up in the morning.
Nah, bro. You got it. You got the juice, bro.
But
I know the juice when I see the juice, bro.
No, man. You flattered me. But the reason I was bringing up the recruiting piece is because that part, and I can tell from you, it comes from you naturally. Like it just, you see it, you recognize it. Hey guys, I'm taking this train. This is where I'm going to go.
Let's go.
You seem like you're a guy that wants to get there as well.
Let's go.
Let's go. You want to go with me?
Let's go.
Am I wrong?
No, that's pretty accurate. Yes.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So now you start growing your company out. You start hiring. Do you hire leadership from outside, or do you try to breed leadership?
So I went from this company. I started seeing the dollars, the revenue numbers. Yep. I said, okay, here's my cut. Here's what the company's making. Now, granted, I didn't understand what fixed costs were back then. I didn't know what insurance costs and gas costs were, and inflation, and everything that cogs, like all the things that it takes to run all the things that it takes to run a business.
CFO mindset there.
And so it was like, well, I'm making this and the company's making this. Like, I should be making that too, right? That was my thinking. Didn't know how to read a balance sheet. Didn't know how to read a P&L. I've told this story multiple times, but we just dove in, man. I recruited some guys and we went and we figured it out on the run. You and I have talked about maybe that's not the best way to start a business, but okay. We went for it. And luckily or fortunately for us, it was an emerging market and there was a high ticket price. So I think just the low-hanging fruit saved us. The ability to create revenue, top line, can save you in certain ways. And then just working, in a tremendous amount of hours and going for it. But started the company, personal account was in the red year one. Business account was in the red year one. Struggling to make payroll. I won a Jeep that I had to sell. I won that in a 6-month contest in my previous company with cell phones and had to sell it to make payroll. Long story short, we made it out. Year one, we did $1 million. Year two, we did $5 million. Year 6, year one, we did $1 million. Year 2, we did $5 million. Year 3, we did $12 million. Year 4, we did $20 million. Year 5, we did $33.5 million. And then COVID hit, and that's a different story.
Right?
I had 108 W-2 employees, Anthony.
Yeah. It's crazy when you're in a certain position and you don't have risk mitigation in place.
Need that.
You need that.
You need it 100%. Asset management, I didn't recognize how valuable that was. Yeah. I didn't even think that was a thing until I got into real estate. I didn't even understand risk mitigation at all. Real estate has opened my eyes to that, and I've spent a tremendous amount of time. You talked about mentorship, but this stuff is very, very needed to run successful businesses.
Yeah. I had a boss tell me that one time. He said,
it's not the sexy part. It's not the fun part, Anthony.
Well, he was a president. He was a president of what bank was that? I forget what bank it was, but anyhow, we were having, I forget, dinner somewhere or something. And he says, appreciation hides everything in real estate. And I'm like, I couldn't get it at that moment. I remember walking out of the restaurant and I was like, what did he mean by that?
It's the same top line in business. You can hide things with top line.
You can, when your volume makes up for the mistakes sometimes, but you don't even know it though.
Right, because you're too busy the cycle.
You're in
the wheel.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. I mean, how can I put this as an analogy? Like you're swimming, and you're swimming pretty fast.
I know where you're going with this.
Right?
You're going to SOPs, aren't you?
Yeah, but I mean, you're swimming pretty fast, or you're rowing pretty well.
Yeah.
Naturally, you're like, man, I'm doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Not recognizing that the wind was at your back.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't have to have the greatest technique because everything was really in the marketplace was rolling in your favor.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
But then as soon as you start, and this is me because I'm a religious person. So as soon as you start not giving God the thanks, and it was because of my doing, is when God will knock you off that pedestal and then remind you, hey, bro, You had wind at your back.
Sure.
Now the winds are in your face. Let's see how good you're going to row now.
How's it going?
How's it going for you there, buddy?
Yeah.
And that's when you start really realizing, oh my God, I really need to tighten up my technique. I need to tighten up my time. And you almost take it for granted because then you start regressing. I know I've done this. Man, if I would have operated how I'm operating right now in the hard times, in the good times, what would it have really been like? Would it have been 20 million? Would it have been 50 million? Holy crap.
Yeah, I think 100%. I've looked back on everything I learned and like, if I would have applied what I learned today back then, what would I be doing? But I think, again, you have to walk with grace on yourself and the people around you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's a journey, man. You don't get to know it all yesterday, right? You got to walk through today.
Yeah.
And then you apply that. That's our job, right? To get better and apply what we learned today, tomorrow. And over time, money flows to people who earn it, like who deserve it.
Right.
Who talks about that is David, what's his name?
Ramsey?
No,
Patrick Bet-David.
Yes, him. He talks about it.
Yeah,
He's like, money is attracted to people who essentially are attractive to money. So you want to make yourself attractive to money, I guess, is the base of the...
Which takes me back to that book, that salesman book, because it talks about those principles. And so when I hear some of these guys...
Which one? Greatest Salesman in the World?
Yeah.
What is his name?
Oh, man. But, dude, I was doing some yard work the other day, mowing the lawn. I'm listening to the thing again. And I'm like, where have I heard this? Where have I heard this? And then I watch PPD podcast.
Augmendino.
Yes. And I'm like, that's where I've heard it from. Those principles are the same throughout history. There's another one, Richest Man in Babylon.
Yes.
Picking the right people for the right jobs and those right experts, the goat herder, don't go to him for the rubies kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know, you can make that mistake blind. And maybe that's another thing too. Maybe as entrepreneurs, we need to be reading more books. Just instead of trying to figure it out along the way, grab a book, take some of the principles within that book and just start applying it. Because could you imagine if the 20-year-old version of you now had that wisdom at your fingertips right there and just followed that as a game plan, how different things would have been?
Yeah, they might have been different. It's the execution of what you're reading and consuming as well, though. Because readers a lot of times read, and I'm speaking for myself, you'll read something and be like, that was amazing, and then I'm going to implement that, and then your phone starts ringing.
Yeah.
And then you have to catch up on your emails.
Yeah.
And you'll get back to it.
Yeah.
And then it goes a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Damn.
I didn't get it.
And then your buddy says, I'm doing this. And you're like, dude, I read that in that book, but this guy's doing it. And look what it's doing for his business.
The pain wasn't great enough yet.
Sure.
Once the pain's great enough and you're willing to submit, then you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm doing it another way now.
Sure.
What was that thing that I read? You'll go back to it because now at least, success leaves clues. You'll go back and you'll start reading through that little chapter and be like, all right, step number 1. You know what? I haven't really appreciated the things that I have at this moment.
Yeah. Thankfulness.
Right?
Huge.
Let me start there. Let me just put that back in my routine. And then you start implementing those little things back again. And then slowly but surely, you'll see yourself morph, but you had to submit to it.
Yeah. Submission is huge, man.
Yeah.
It's huge. Humbleness, huge.
Yeah.
And you're right, bro. Like one thing I try to do is I think I'm generally a pretty humble guy. I come from super humble beginnings. I'm super hardworking. And sometimes people that don't know me and they first meet me think, what's up with this guy? He's coming in hot. Yeah. But once you get to know me, I think you can kind of see through, that generally, I understand that I have humble beginnings. I understand that every single person in this country doesn't have the same opportunities I do. And definitely everyone in the world hasn't had the same opportunities that I've had. You still
came from Section 8 though.
Section 8 and welfare. But bro, like even the way sort of my mind works and, I think we all have gifts, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And some gifts are geared towards different things. So being thankful And the point I was going to make is humility is something that if you try to practice on your own, maybe God will be like, I don't have to come in and flick. I call it the flick. Because
that's such a good way to do it, bro.
Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, he doesn't have to cut my legs off, bro. He's God, so it just gives me a flick, bro. That, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really, really important. And you talk about that a lot, Anthony, and it's a great reminder, bro. I need it in my life, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And thank you, sir. May I have another?
Yeah, right? What are we asking for here? Right? Let's clarify first.
Yeah. But dude, that's amazing though. So, okay, so now COVID hits, business shifts.
Yeah, and I started investing in real estate a year after the business.
Okay.
And I had always kind of known that real estate was going to be my end goal. Mm-hmm. I loved a lot of things about real estate. I love leverage. I love the ability to take something that's nothing and make it bigger or better. Mm-hmm. Every single, what we're sitting in right now, this office used to be just dirt. Mm-hmm. And someone had a vision and they made that happen. There's a lot of people that got paid and a lot of people that had work and effort that made this all happen. Yeah. So I like that concept in real estate because to me, being a spiritual person as you are, it's sort of like Christ. Like he can see something in someone that maybe the world can't see, and he can invest into that person and that person can grow and basically have the ability to do anything in life, if they stay on that right path. So that transfers into real estate for me. I like the flip game and I really like the value add game and I like the density add game. I like the development. So I bought a piece of property. There's an additional unit there. So that became 2. Lot next door, 2 units there. That was just dirt. And then from there, I was basically hooked, Anthony. It was like, you can do this and you can see a piece of property when you're driving down the street. You can find a way to go buy that property. You can make that property better and then someone will pay you for it.
That's awesome, bro.
It's simple, man. But
you know what it is though? If you really look at from your story of the building the business and your outlook on real estate right now, it literally comes full circle.
Yeah.
Because when you see the business or the property, buying property is no different than buying a business. Then you're looking at that and you're saying, okay, what's the opportunity for this? And where are my gaps?
Okay. Swatting it. Where can I get hurt?
Yeah. And you look at, okay, what are my gaps? And what do I need to do to take this from here to here? Time frame, costs. It's just a linear chain of events that needs to happen.
Bro, it was debt. It was like, how do I get this money? So then I go online and I'm like, private money conferences.
Yeah.
So I just book one and go to it, start talking to all the random private money guys and their eyes light up. They're like, yeah, we got one, right? But bro, and then from there, your network grows. And now I'm meeting guys like you who are heavy in the game, who are mortgage guys, who understand the space. And like even how you mitigate risk, and you were talking me through essentially how you approach each customer last week when we were chatting.
Yeah.
It's amazing because your angle is to help. Your angle is to educate. Your MO, the way you operate is, how can I help this person understand what they're getting themselves into so they can be successful? Yeah. Which is a different thinking than how can I close this deal?
Yeah.
And that struck me, bro. And I was like, you know what? He's presenting his offering on a different level.
Yeah. I learned that a long time ago. I got lucky. Honestly, I got lucky. It's called diagnostic selling. I knew nothing about sales. I knew nothing about sales when I got in the business. So my buddy sent me these tapes. This guy's name's Jeff Thule. Great tapes. How about that?
Tapes?
Cassette tapes, bro.
Nice.
Back in the day, at that time, I had like a Porsche, okay? I didn't have a cassette tape player. This was at least we had CD players, right?
Sure.
I had to go find a Walkman, right? And remember the cars used to have the little auxiliary jack in the front?
Yeah.
So I had to go find a Walkman. Where do you sell Walkmans? Like, where did I get the thing? No, dude, I had to go to Radio Shack, right? Get one of those.
Shout out Circuit City.
Dude, Circuit City. But I had to get this thing, and I would drive from Temecula to San Diego, and I would just listen to this guy's tapes the whole way. that's what started kind of like, oh, wait a minute. Diagnostic selling is just the same approach your doctor would take when they're doing a prognosis.
Right.
Take your blood, find out what ails you, how are you feeling, where are you at currently, so I can figure out what the prescription is to get you where you need to go. That's basically what it boils down to.
Is it similar in concept to question-based selling?
I don't know, question-based selling. I couldn't tell you. Like, I'm not like a student of that type of philosophy, like in terms of the philosophies. So what's ironic is, after learning that, I'm like, what else can I learn about selling?
Right.
So then I went to listen to Brian Tracy.
It opened up your curiosity. You
Yeah.
wanted to know more about this
more.
genre. How can I be a better salesperson?
Yeah. I learned about the Brian Tracy thing, but the dichotomy of those two was that one was diagnostic base, much more personal, because I'm genuinely trying to find out what your goal is.
Right.
And then the other one was more transactional, more manipulative, right? And I know manipulative can be like a negative connotation to it, but you manipulate clay, right? You're just molding it. People just happen to use that power for bad.
Agreed.
Right?
Yep.
And so when he's talking about like the puppy dog approach and the bandwagon and do this and do that, I'm like, okay, got it. FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Right. So you learn all these different techniques at the same time with the diagnostic selling.
Would, higher base power. Let me call my manager and see if I can get that discount.
Right.
All of that stuff.
You learn about all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you I think you kind of learn both ends of it. That's how I ended up learning it. From there's a guy named
higher power selling.
Todd Duncan.
I've heard him, but I haven't read him. But I know. Yeah.
So back in the day when we were doing the whole mortgage training thing, the meltdown happened. This is like, let me see, that's happened in 07, 08, 07, 08-ish. One of the biggest mortgage coaches in the country, one of my bosses was good friends with him. So he came in and started rolling out what he was using for loan officers for coaching. He does like high trust selling and a lot of philosophical things, right? And so getting 3 different angles of what sales is, it's good. It's enlightening, right? It's enlightening because it helps you form and craft a technique. What suits your ethos. So for me, I just happen to like the feeling of the diagnostic side. Tell me what ails you. I can.
But it's not to say that the other two haven't helped you in your career.
No, they've definitely helped me for sure.
Yeah,
for sure, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's what you prefer.
It's what I prefer as a natural basis.
Sure.
But at the same time, they're just tools in a toolbox.
Yep.
And it's all it is. They're just and at what to use, at what time, when to present it.
It's like baseball. I'm a sports guy.
Yeah.
It's being able to hit a home run, but also being able to bunt. Yeah. And you know how to swing and hit a double. We were talking about this the other day, getting base hits. Yeah. Getting base hits. You still know how to swing for the fences, though, if you need to get one out.
Yeah.
And if you need to lay one down and get the guy over to second, move him over and sacrifice, you're able to do it.
Yeah.
But you prefer to maybe hit singles and doubles.
Yeah. It's because you're looking at other things in consideration of the greater good. So when the analogy you and I are talking about the baseball thing was because, okay, do you want to run a business where you take every single client? I'm going to work with everybody and have no set of standards.
We were talking about volume over quantity over quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to have a set of standards, right? And if you don't maintain that standard, you can have somebody that can jump in and will gum up the gears in your operations. And it could be a high net worth client that's a really pain in the butt. Maybe that's your forte. No problem. That just you get in where you fit in. But if you don't have a set of standards when you're operating that business model, sometimes no is a yes. It actually can enhance the business. Or maybe you take on that tough client or that pro bono client, but because it's a relationship deal and you acknowledge it's a relationship deal because that person maybe refers you business and it's their cousin and they don't have any savings, they don't have the greatest of things. But
you were talking about that you do sort of a pro bono deal yearly, or you have
well, I won't do it on purpose. I'll just acknowledge it.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just happens to come, hey, dude. It just happens all the time.
Does it always start like that?
Yeah.
Hey, dude, I got this.
Bro,
I got this client.
I know you're busy, bro, but dude, he's my wife's brother-in-law.
You're going through it, man.
You know what I mean? He's going through a divorce.
Yeah, always.
Can you help him out? Sure.
We got him.
I got him, bro.
But it's gonna be a lead source for you. It's gonna give back to you.
If I was a doctor, he just didn't have insurance.
Right. Helps you sleep better at night too.
That's right.
When you give.
That's right.
100%.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But you just have to acknowledge what your standard is and that you're deviating from the standard, and then that you know for certain, I am going to donate my time to this person.
So when did that hit you? Because, you know, the turn and burn, Anthony, and, you know, the flying high, you told me some of that about your history.
Yeah.
Just absolutely crushing.
Yeah.
Did that happen like with sort of Jocko's leadership or some of your previous bosses, or when did it click?
Two moments in time.
Two different times.
I can distinctly remember it.
Yeah.
So one of them was when I found out my wife was pregnant. That was the first time. So I got lucky with the group of guys I was working with. And my first couple of years was doing a lot of volume. Again, I was a soldier, so they just told me, this is what you need to do.
This is mortgages, loans.
This is mortgages, yeah.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do.
Go do it.
Go do it. Boom, did it. That first year, you go to the President's Club and you're like, oh, we're going to a retreat. This is kind of cool. And you're like, no, bro, like this is like the elite groups. I'm like, really? As I'm eating all the freaking shrimp and shit, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, that's kind of cool. I was super oblivious to it.
Yeah.
One. But I remember one of my old bosses came in and he had a gold Rolex on that he won on a bet. And it was a $75,000 watch, right? And so he asked me something about some kind of challenge or something.
Glenn Ross.
That's a good book, bro. Love that book. Coffee's for Closers. But he comes in, bro, and he says, what's motivating you right now? What do you have right now that's motivating you? Have you ever done a bet somebody something where everything's like on the line? And in my mind, I'm sitting there on my desk. This is the day after I found out my wife was pregnant. So I was just super heavy thinking about, holy shit, I'm going to have mouths to feed. It was before just me, and I had investment properties and rentals. We were doing great.
Yeah.
I'm like, now my goal was my wife to stay home and take care of a family. Like it was
provide,
literally settling in. So he flips his hand out. He's like, you see this watch? I won this on a bet. $75,000. Feel it. And he like throws it to me. And I'm looking at it. And I'm sitting here thinking,
bro, it's that scene from Glenn Ross. You see this watch? This watch costs more than your car.
Yeah, but that was his dick move, right?
Yeah.
Like,
he was like being like sort of on your side. He was like trying to really
like, motivate me, right?
Yeah.
Like, dude, you want to like, and I sat there and I remember telling him, I'm like, bro, I got way better than that, dude. And he's like, what? I'm like, my wife's pregnant, bro.
Fair.
And he just put that watch back on. Shut the fuck up.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was weird that here this guy's trying to pump a little ether in. But just knowing that my wife was having the baby, or we're going to have a baby,
something clicked.
Something clicked.
Yeah.
The second time, though, was when my baby was born, like the day of. I was working 1,000 miles an hour, just doing the thing. And I remember the anticipation of my daughter coming out. And I don't know what kind of image I had in my mind of the doctor, right? Like the stork's going to come in, hand me a bunch of cigars. You know what I'm saying? Like we're going to be like high fives. And literally at the last minute, doctor walks in, gets a little plunger thing, pulls her out. Congratulations, you're a father. And walked out.
Done.
Not even a handshake,
you guys got 24 hours
Not even, yeah, pretty much.
Vacate.
He's like, you got 15 minutes, bro. Your time starts now. Dude, I sat there like almost like in shock, right? It's 4:00 in the morning. I at least wanted a freaking handshake or a hug or something. You know what I mean? But it felt so transactional. Like it didn't even, like it was like a burden almost in a sense, right? And I just remember that feeling. And I remember holding my daughter there with my wife, they moved us to another room, and I'm reflecting back on this experience, right? And I'm like, man, here she is. But that first introduction of congratulations, I didn't even get one. Like, it wasn't what I expected. And I said, man, I never want to have my clients ever feel like that.
Wow, that's impactful.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I didn't know where you're going, and then, whoa, you tied it in. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And I say this because when we're doing a mortgage or just a transaction, you're literally putting a boulder in someone's river of life. It's changing their course. They now have a new home, and we're providing them this opportunity. Hey, here's $750,000. If we don't use the right financial product, I can put this person in the worst position possible that will affect them for generations.
Right.
Their kids may not go to college because we did something we shouldn't have been doing for the sake of a commission check.
You didn't take care of them.
Correct.
You didn't put their needs first.
So it's a matter of putting their needs first, and it's their decision to make the decision what they make, right? What's your budget allow? Awesome. This is the number. How much can you qualify for? Cool. Here's the number. Somewhere in between these two numbers is for you to decide. If you find the house with the pool, great. You want to bump it up? No problem. Cross the street from the kids' school? Awesome. That's your prerogative. This is your ceiling. Fair? And I'm like, oh, awesome. That's exactly what I needed. Perfect. So that experience in itself of having the child really changed my personal thinking. I don't know how we got down this topic, but my personal thinking of the transactional based thing. So I just made it a conscious choice going forward. If you're going to do a pro bono deal, you just acknowledge, I'm just doing this because
it's the ethos, man. It's the spirit and the love in you, the heart that I believe God gave you, and you have.
Well, we all have it,
but you look. We all have certain gifts, but if you choose to continue to train yourself and act on those good things, over time, I think you become better, and then becomes habit forming. Same thing on the other side, right? And again, have grace, and we haven't arrived, but continue to invest in the good, and then over time it becomes habitual.
Yeah.
How are we doing on time, man?
We're good. I mean, it's up to you. That was a pretty deep convo there.
We got in the heavies,
You got me
bro.
talking a lot, bro.
We got in the heavies, bro. We got in the heavies.
So now you have the business growing. You started the new construction. You're starting the flips. You're starting the developments. And you're starting a brand new business.
Yeah. So the new company, the new venture is called ADU Pals. Absolutely stoked for it. When I was developing real estate, building real estate ground up construction, and doing flips, I was also doing solar. So needless to say, I was very busy and working a lot. And also, candidly, there were some cracks there because I could not manage it all. There was some risk that didn't get mitigated, and I made some mistakes. And I'll make mistakes moving forward too. But I want to take everything I learned, and I want to get better every day. I want to mitigate against every risk that I know of personally, and that people in my network tell me about, and things I read about. I want to continually be getting better mitigating risks. So the new company, ADU Pals, we do consulting for, say, homeowners, just a standard, I call them Tom and Sally homeowners that want to look at doing ADUs or putting an ADU in their backyard, in their front yard. Investors that are also trying to build ADUs. There's a lower barrier of entry for ADUs in this city, especially. And then build my personal portfolio. So I'm an investor first. I'm always looking for really good deals. We're buying them, cash with hard money. We're going in, we're adding value, and we're adding density. So wherever we can, we're building. And I think the ADU laws are great in California, and San Diego has really leaned in.
San Diego in specific. The
city of San Diego has really leaned in.
Specific,
and I'm sure, Anthony, you're one of the OGs of this, right? So it's nothing new to you, but I came along maybe 5-6 years after you, bro. So to me, it's just like first time you have ice cream, bro. Let's go.
You don't want to be the first guys on the block, bro. It's the worst.
Yeah.
But you know what though? It's okay. It's okay. Cause what it did for me personally was I saw the ADU thing in 2017. And that's when we started hosting events and, doing that kind of thing in the hotels, make it all big.
Dude,
right?
I will say, just sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
in solar, it was the same. I was very fortunate because there were some guys that came before me, first to market, and they got obliterated, man.
Yeah.
So I came in right
It's
as
better
it
to be
was,
like the second to market.
yeah, right as
Yeah,
it was
I acknowledge
going
that,
up.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Because now, when I sold the business a year and a half ago, and almost 2 years now, that was the epiphany. I was like, wait a minute. Right now, I get it. These guys are doing these units here, garage conversions, adding one door. I'm like, no. Let me fast forward. Let me push forward. What's happening on the big grand scheme of things? The density housing, the multi-units, adding 6, 8, 10 units onto individual properties, right? And I had subdivided some lots and did a couple development things here and there. And it wasn't as hard as I thought it was. It took a lot longer, but it was much more calculated. So transitioning from the seat of your pants to then transitioning to more, I guess you go from checkers to chess.
Sure.
Right?
Systems.
You have to slow down and create the systems. You have to look at your budgets, run the numbers ahead of time.
Pro formas, underwriting.
Take the emotion away from it.
Devil's advocate.
Yep.
Yes, backing the numbers out and not writing them in pencil. They're in pen.
Right.
If it doesn't pencil, it doesn't pencil.
That's it. Walk away.
Yep.
And that was a hard transition.
Sure.
So that's why when you see me talking to the groups and going over that, why that philosophy is in place, it's just a different game.
Yep.
I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
So, broad stroke, I'm going to break it down like this.
Yeah.
There is an affordable housing crisis. There's a housing crisis in California.
Yep.
The way I see it, or I had an epiphany where it was, okay, developers or builders only have so much equity, like all of us. We only have so much capital, but really, developers are a small group. They're a breed that is not common.
Very small.
Time, energy, effort, right? We've talked about that multiple times for investors and for entrepreneurs.
Yep.
So they can only do so much, but they're not keeping up with the demand.
Yep.
So how can the state, I'm talking about California specifically, and this is happening all around the country, keep up with the demand? Well, if they can make more investors, the barrier of entry to develop lower, meaning you have a property, you can now split the lot and create a whole new lot, SB9, SB10, and build something on that. Then they get commerce.
Yep.
They get people in their city paying taxes. All the title people make money. The escrow people make money. The mortgage people make money. The real estate agents make money. Your local Costco, they're creating commerce, and they're doing it in a way that I think is revolutionary and new. And again, San Diego's leaning in. So instead of just saying one ADU and one junior ADU, which is a garage conversion, they're allowing you to do a multiple amount. They're allowing you to do multiple ADUs on lots. And, for guys like me, it's huge, man. It's an opportunity that wasn't here, say 10 years ago.
We lost a lot of momentum. So when I was on the board with San Diego and with the county, we were advisors, right? It was maybe, 10 of us a total.
Yeah.
And this is in maybe 2018, 2019, those years. And pre-COVID. We had just started doing our workshops for communities. So the city was putting on like a local community center where we had individuals from the neighborhood would come in, and it was maybe like 100 people at a time, mostly seniors, by the way. Because what we were really trying to target at the time, the ideal consumer was a 67-year-old Sally living on her own by San Diego State.
And this was for?
Building ADUs.
Got it.
And just what the concept was about it and how to go about it. So one of the premises that I was always preaching to the guys.
So you were doing sort of like focus groups.
Focus groups for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and we had our small group within the county and then one with the city, but the one with the county in particular. So afterwards, one of the things that my most important side was, how do we make sure that the consumer doesn't get taken advantage of, right? There's a way for you to make money on your property to generate cash flow. There's a way for you to create equity in your property, right? However, in this process, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. One of the worst things is having just cash on hand. Why is that? Well, there's a lot of unscrupulous contractors that will take 30, 40, 50 grand from you up front and never show up.
For the record, if your contractor tries to get more than $1,000 from you, that's against the law.
Yep, they're dirt. Do it all the time.
Yep.
They do it all the time, especially when you're an older person and don't know some of these details.
The horror stories are real.
The horror stories are really real.
Yep.
The second thing is having phase lines in the process, right? So like having right expectations. Okay, first we're going to do demo and we're going to do foundation work and maybe some trenching.
You're saying the contractors weren't laying that out for the clients?
No. So that was one of the biggest ways that we were getting people
just
to come in.
Just give me a couple $100,000 and then you're going to get a structure.
We'll build you something. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we started doing the workshops that way. And we were getting a lot of traction with it. But when COVID hit, that stopped. I remember that the last one we did, people were kind of coughing. And I was thinking in my mind, like, oh, man, here we go. This COVID thing's going around. But I haven't seen that start taking off again, other than like what we have here today, where we have a bunch of investors talking about making money. The consumer.
You got a great group here, Anthony.
There's a good group here.
Really good group.
Yeah, but I think from the consumer standpoint, that's, I think what you're talking about, that missing piece.
Well, it's a lower barrier of entry. Like there's a lot of people, I posted about this the other day. There's a lot of people that want to be a developer. You know, it's a cool thing, but where do I go? What do I do? What does that mean?
What's my action steps?
And like you said about arbitrage, San Diego is a great market for arbitrage. The dirt here is, in some cases, valuable, but how do you extract that value? Yeah. Well, our superpower is we have very strong relationships in the community. Community to you is really important. It's important to us, whether that be government, whether that be contractors, we ourselves are contractors, whether that be consultants, architects, and then lenders. Mm-hmm. So we can help them get debt and, walk them through the process and explore it, right? We're not pushy. I'll just tell you this. We're investing as much as we can personally.
Right.
And so, it's the same thing of recruiting that kid from Starbucks. Hey, look, man, I know what it's like to make $10 an hour. If I can show you a way to make some more money, how does that look for you? And start a dialogue. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it does, let's see what the next step is.
Yeah. 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 And I don't know. We need more of guys like you on the street.
I appreciate it.
We do. Too many people are out there, and that's my fear, is that they get taken advantage of. They don't know what they don't know yet. And now that there's a lot of contractors and different people trying to build the ADU, what they don't know, just like the sales techniques.
Yeah.
What they don't know is the methodology on how to actually provide them the right product and make them feel
you're
good
huge
when
on
they're done.
that. It was really insightful you talking to me about that last week, man.
Yeah.
I took that to heart. I took a lot of notes. Putting the customer first, dissecting what the needs are, dissecting what the community around them looks like, and not just sort of force feeding them something, looking at it. What is it called? Not dialogue.
Diagnostic selling.
Diagnostic selling. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Prognosis without diagnosis is malpractice. Right.
And if you're a contractor doing that, you're committing malpractice.
But think about the guys. This morning, they're pounding a nail in the wall, pounding some hammers, right? And you're going from that mindset now to being like, hey, let me be a consultant for you.
Right.
Right. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I see there's not enough of it going along, enough of it being built, because people would love to do that.
There's a huge demand too. But what you're saying is, before you go to market, if you want to do this, know your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And be leading from a place of service as opposed to a place of, personal gain.
Yeah. So if this podcast resonates with anybody in this that can find it of value, forward it to them, forward it to a contractor, because I would love for our business and our industry to just improve. And hopefully some of the techniques and things you talked about today will penetrate our market, because I think the more that we can do that as a society as a whole, the better we're going to impact our local communities.
100%.
So thanks, brother.
Thank you, brother.
It's always a pleasure.
Peace.